In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Happy day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of In Full Zoom. I'm Nestor Licanto, and I'm pleased to welcome our guest for this week. He is Philippine Consul General Patrick John Hilado. Good morning, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, good morning, Nestor. Good to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
You're the relatively new Consul General for Guam from the Philippines. Could you tell us a little bit first about your background in the Foreign Service and some of the posts that you've been stationed at?
Yes, thank you. That's right. I arrived on Guam last May, so I'm on my second month now, going on my second month. I came directly from our Philippine Consulate General in Osaka in Japan. So I served there for the past 4 years as Deputy Consul General, and then I came here last May to serve as Consul General in Guam. It's my second time to be assigned in the United States. Previously, I was assigned in Chicago when I was a junior officer back in 2003 until 2007. So it's good to be back in the U.S. and U.S. territory. And my previous other assignments were in Finland and Norway, and my first one was in Papua New Guinea. So it's good to be here in Guam.
Yeah, as with all Foreign Service professionals, you are well-traveled.
Yeah, I've been in the service for more than 20 years, so yeah.
Speaking of travel, one of the reasons that I asked you to come on the show is I understand that there are in the works a special, travel provisions for Guamanians to travel into the Philippines. Can you talk a little bit about that, this green lane that you are proposing?
Yeah, well, currently there's a technical working group that has been formed under the Philippine government's interagency task force. That is, this technical working group is looking at ways on how to establish a green lane in terms of admitting travel for people who have already been vaccinated abroad. The system is not yet in place. There are a lot of issues that need to be considered with this. But what's sure is that there's a technical working group working on it. It's also something, a proposal that our Secretary of Tourism had suggested before as part of our reopening. As you know, Nestor, the COVID situation in the Philippines is still there. We've managed to bring down the numbers of infection. At the same time, we've ramped up our vaccinations. But we are still working hard to try to control the spread of the virus. And so one of the controls would be to regulate international travel. So we are aware that there's a lot of vaccinations going on abroad as well. So a lot of Filipinos have also been wanting to travel to the Philippines, have been requesting. I think the big challenge now is to find the system by which to validate or to monitor or to, which I guess is a challenge that is faced by almost all other governments and countries worldwide as they try to regulate the flow of people in and out of the country.
Sure. If it were to be approved, how exactly would it work?
We don't have the details yet, but the general concept is that if there's a way to validate vaccinations, then they could be admitted based on those validations. The problem, again, as I said, would be trying to come up with a system on how to validate. So of course, they're working on it, but I think that's the general concept is that you can have a special lane or a green lane for those that have been verified or validated to have already been fully vaccinated. So, but
and this would apply to, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
And it. Well, in principle, it should apply to all travelers. But again, the devil is in the details on that and how to operationalize it. Yeah. So we're hoping for the best. We're hoping that our vaccination numbers also ramp up a bit more. We've done some very good numbers especially the past 2-3 weeks. A lot of millions of doses have come in again. So we are around 17 million doses already have been delivered. And we are expecting about 30 million more in the next months. So yeah, we're very busy in terms of the vaccinations now.
Yeah. In addition to balikbayans, of course, a lot of foreign nationals, Guam residents are anxious to travel back to the Philippines, one of the favorite destinations of local residents because of its proximity and, of course, all the cultural ties with the Philippines and friends and relatives over there. If you were to guess a date when that will happen, when do you think that would be?
It's very difficult and probably dangerous for me to hazard the definite date, but we're looking for things to slightly change and to improve in the coming months. So we're looking maybe towards the end of the year. Hopefully there will be some changes in our in terms of our regulations for travel. It's hard to say, but what we can say is that our interagency task force has been constantly reviewing this, and of course the main consideration would be health considerations. So we really get a lot of input from our Department of Health on that. But we are aware of the need. We are aware of also a lot of people who want to travel. We've actually kind of liberalized it again, because there was a time when we totally stopped taking in foreign nationals, including our balikbayans. But now balikbayans are able to travel. Former Filipinos are able to travel to the Philippines, of course, subject to the quarantine restrictions and all the other guidelines in terms of testing. There's also some limited capacity in terms of air travel to the Philippines. Not many airlines have already resumed. We're very lucky because Philippine Airlines and United Airlines continue to travel between Guam and the Philippines. So we do have that air traffic going on. We have our citizens and balikbayans who are able to go home now. The numbers are nowhere near prior to the pandemic. So we really want to see how that can be reopened soon.
And we'll be back with more In Full Zoom right after this.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Yeah, I know. I keep hearing a lot of people want to or expecting maybe by the so-called Burr months, September forward, that the Philippines will definitely open up, and hopefully, cross your fingers that will transpire. What is your sense of what the current state of the COVID pandemic is in the Philippines, particularly in the Metro Manila, what we call the National Capital Region? Has it improved in the last, say, 3 to 6 months?
Yes, actually, it has improved dramatically over the past 2-3 months. If you recall, we were on MECQ, or Modified Enhanced Quarantine System, in community quarantine in Manila, Metro Manila. This has now eased to modified GCQ, which has allowed for movements. So the numbers have dropped compared to, let's say, 2-3 months ago. Particularly in the greater Metro Manila area. We've had some numbers picking up a bit in some of the provinces, in some cities, in other areas. That's why they're trying to also reclassify some cities. So yesterday, the government announced for the new reclassifications of community quarantines in different parts of the country, depending on the level of new cases. It's a race against time for us because we want to ramp up our vaccinations, because we believe that is the best way by which we can see the numbers fall. And I'm very happy to report on that vaccinations have dramatically risen over at least the past month or two. The past 2 weeks in particular, we've been hitting a lot of milestones in terms of the daily vaccinations as the supply comes in. So it's quite uneven across the country. So there are areas where the numbers have stabilized or have even dropped. Metro Manila, luckily, the numbers are starting to fall, which has allowed us to slowly reopen. So there is some economic activity that goes on already in Metro Manila. Actually, they say about 70% of the economy is open. It's just that there are still some restrictions in terms of gatherings, and then all in terms of capacity, as well as transportation.
Yeah, most global economies, of course, have been hit hard by this pandemic, and the Philippines is no exception. How would you assess the impacts so far of COVID on the Philippine economy?
So like practically every other country in the world, COVID-19 pandemic has obviously affected us greatly, especially I think in the second, third quarters of 2020, when we had to do that very strong, drastic lockdown in an effort to help save lives and prevent the collapse of the healthcare system in the country. Fortunately, though, prior to the pandemic, as you know, we've had only a decade of consistent growth of around about 6% for the past 10 years. Our economy had very robust fundamentals. All this has helped us to navigate at least those very difficult parts of 2020. While the economy has not returned to pre-pandemic levels, nowhere near that, but it is not probably correct to say that the economy has not reopened because, as I said earlier, we are actually open. And in fact, the estimate of our National Economic Development Authority is that 75% of the economy has reopened. There's still a lot to go, but I think our stable economic fundamentals prior to the pandemic has helped cushion the blow. We are also very conscious about unemployment. So at one point, the unemployment was pretty high, but this has stabilized, and our central bank and our Economic Development Authority has noted that we've seen employment start to pick up again as we have reopened the economy. Obviously, there's a lot of disruptions in terms of supply chains and all this other stuff. But I think what the government right now is doing is trying to adopt a strategy of first accelerate the vaccination. So the more people we vaccinate, we've actually opened the vaccination. At first, we were just doing vaccinations for the frontline healthcare workers. Then we expanded it to the seniors. Then for those with comorbidities. This June, we expanded it to those that are working in frontline economic sectors. So the idea is that as we vaccinate more of this fourth group, then we are able to reinvigorate the economy. The government is also launching an economic recovery program. One of that would be in terms of what we call the CREATE law, which is the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises, or the CREATE Act, which provides fiscal stimulus package to micro, small, and medium enterprises. This is hopefully going to be helpful in terms of retaining jobs and creating jobs. One of the key features of the CREATE law would be a 5 to 10% point reduction in terms of the regular corporate income tax rate. So the idea behind it is to provide the environment by which our MSMEs, or the small and medium scale businesses, are able to regain their foothold, and as we reopen the economy.
In Full Zoom will continue after the break.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Yeah, one of the other pillars of the Philippine economy, of course, is the overseas foreign workers, the OFWs, which, of course, the Department of Foreign Affairs is very involved in, of course.
Right.
Can you give us an overview of what the state of that is and how you think that will come back post-pandemic?
So the downside is during the pandemic, a lot of our OFWs were affected, especially those that were in the services sector and had to go home. We had hundreds of thousands. We had to repatriate hundreds of thousands of Filipino workers from abroad. The good side, though, is that deployment has not stopped and has, in fact, started again. So we've seen new OFWs traveling abroad for jobs that have returned, or new jobs that have have been opened in other economies abroad. As I think as the world's economies recover, then the employment opportunities are there again. One of the examples I can cite would be our seafarers. We had a lot of seafarers working with the cruise industry and ships abroad. So in 2020, when everything came to a halt globally, a lot of them had to go home. But now, as the economies recover, especially the United States, for example, the U.S. economy, I know you've seen how cruise ships have started to, market for cruise packages again. So that means there will be Filipinos there, and there will be jobs for our seafarers again. So there's a lot of movement in terms of deployment. At the same time, there are people still coming home.
Yeah. How do you think the Philippine economy will rebound? Will it be quick, or do you think it'll be kind of a slow climb back up to where it was, as you mentioned, it had been steady growth in the years prior to the pandemic?
Our economic managers are hopeful that with the right environment and with the vaccinations going forward, and with the businesses starting to recover, that we are targeting a 6% growth this year, and we are hoping that by 2022, which is next year, we can begin to go back to pre-pandemic levels. So it is really a recovery. However, we hope that at least for the next 16, 20 months, we can get back to where we were prior to the pandemic.
All right, let's shift the focus to politics now. Of course, a little over 10 months from now, the Philippines will be voting for a new president, and it will obviously be one of the most important elections because this person will be in charge of the post-pandemic recovery of the Philippines. Can you give us a sense of where we are, where the Philippines is right now in preparation for next year's presidential election next May?
Well, we're gearing up for the historic elections next year. It's a big elections, as you know. This is our once every 6-year election that we elect president, the vice president, half of the Senate, the entire House of Representatives, and our local executives. So it's down the ballot. So it's a big elections. Again, coming at a time when we are about to exit the pandemic. It is very crucial, very critical. Our Commission on Elections has been busy, even through the pandemic, campaigning for registrations for new voters. So for us here abroad, we are also part of the elections in terms of becoming sites for overseas voting. So for me personally, that's one of my priorities here as we prepare to allow our overseas registered voters here in Guam to participate for next year's elections. And I hope you will allow me to shamelessly promote that our voter registration is ongoing. So we are inviting all Filipinos who are residing here in Guam, including those who are becoming dual citizens, to avail of our voter registration period, which will end on September 30. So it's very critical for them to be able to register. We are hoping that we are able to participate actively in terms of the national elections next year. In terms of politics back home, we don't have any confirmations of who's running, but I guess that it's always been what's interesting about Philippine politics. So there will be a lot of interesting developments in the coming months.
Yeah, they say that a lot of Philippine politics is more a popularity contest. If you get your name out there, like if you're a semi-celebrity or a celebrity, that carries more weight. Do you think that's still the case?
I think there's a lot of voter education efforts that have been ongoing as well, and which is why we also encourage those who register to vote to avail of the voter education programs, for example, that the COMELEC has been doing in terms of educating the voters. So that has been one of the programs of COMELEC actually. But we also are interested to address issue of voter apathy. The Philippines usually we have very high voter registration and voter turnouts, but we think that there's still a part of the population that we can reach out to in terms of voter interest in terms of being involved in the democratic process. I think a lot of NGOs and even schools have also done their voter awareness and voter education campaigns. We are hoping that in a democracy we see all the information out there, and we are able to process it and choose the best leaders that we want to lead our country.
Still more In Full Zoom ahead. Don't go away.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
Yeah. And what do you think will be, and I think I know what the answer will be, what do you think will be the single most important issue for this upcoming presidential election?
Well, I think it'll be the economy. I mean, a lot of has happened over the past year and a half, and and it's a global thing, I think. And I think the moving forward in terms of the recovery from the pandemic, I think is would be the most critical issue. There'll be other issues, of course, as in any elections, but I think the economy will be front and center.
Absolutely, I agree with you there. Final question. The Philippines, of course, is celebrating its 75th anniversary of a relationship with the United States. This is your, I think, second post you said in the United States. Tell us a little bit about that, what your thoughts are on this relationship, political relationship with the United States.
Yeah, so it's a special year for all of us, especially for Filipino Americans. This is, as we say, our 75th anniversary for the establishment of our bilateral relations. That is the formal relations within our two countries. But of course, our ties go way, way back. But I think there's a lot to celebrate our 75th year. We have very good reason to mark this milestone. And I think one of the cornerstones of this would be our people-to-people ties. And I think this is what bodes well for our relations, that moving forward in the next decades, that our relations are just, I think our ambassador in Washington, D.C. said it one time, robust and unshakable. And I like the word unshakable because I think it says that we have very deep roots. Our two peoples have very deep roots. And I think it's very evident, for example, here on Guam. I'm so actually inspired by how much, how strong the correct connections between Filipinos and Guameans are. Well, before I came to Guam, I've never been here, so not even transit. So it was my first time to be on Guam, and it's been overwhelming actually to see how much there's a lot of really very, very deep and shared history between the Philippines and Guam. And I think it goes through the United States as well. When I was in Chicago, we were covering, because we don't have consulates in every state, so we were covering about 18 states at that time. And wherever I go, what really underpins our relations are our strong people-to-people relations. There's just so many intersections, and it's very hard to find a Filipino who doesn't have a relative who lives in the United States, or a friend who has migrated to the United States. In the same way, we have a lot of dual citizens. Ever since we passed our dual citizenship law in the early 2000s, we've had thousands and thousands of Filipino Americans who have reacquired their citizenship as Filipinos in addition to their American citizenship. And they are the ones that underpin our relations. So our relations is it's multifaceted, it's strong, and it encompasses everything from political insecurity to economic cooperation to people-to-people ties. So there's so much to celebrate, actually. It's just unfortunate that because of COVID, the celebrations this year have been a bit subdued. But we had a big online virtual concert last 2 weeks. It's still on our Facebook page. So again, shamelessly plugging our Facebook page for those who want to watch that online virtual concert to celebrate the 75th anniversary.
All right, Consul General, we need to wrap up, but I want to give you one opportunity. Of course, you are just not only the oversee Guam, but the Northern Marianas and also Micronesia, Palau, and those places.
Right.
So I just want to give you an opportunity to just say some words to your constituents out there, if you would.
Thank you very much again, Nestor. And I'd like to say hello to all our kababayans in Guam, in the Northern Marianas Islands, in Saipan, also in the Federated States of Micronesia, in the Marshall Islands. We cover the entire region, and we'd like to once again greet everyone a happy Independence Month, as we still we're having this in June. And also, I'd like to reassure you that the Philippine consulate here in Guam is here to serve our kababayans. And as we emerge from this pandemic, we are trying to find ways to further improve our consular services here at the consulate in Ghana. And we would like to welcome you here when you have the chance to come and visit us. Marami pong salamat.
Thank you so much. Consul General Patrick John Hilado is our guest this week. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm Nestor Licanto. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you again next week on In Full Zoom.
In Full Zoom is presented to you by Calvo Enterprises, Inc.